Hey, it looks like it's going to work. Instagram is checking its connection. I need to change this fucking background picture on my fucking YouTube. I don't know what that is. Silent Flute Monday intro. This is fucking absurd. Okay. Let's post it. Live on Instagram. Come on. Come on. Instagram. Here we go. All right. Checking connection. Maybe if I do it on this side. Oh, I think I remember. I need to turn on the Wi-Fi. I don't think the Wi-Fi's on. Okay. Let's see. So that should be working now. Okay. So go live. Cool. What's up, Instagram? All right. And then we're live here on YouTube also. Good to see everybody. So we'll just start with a couple of announcements while people join. The podcast has changed on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I now have a behavior code podcast. You'll see the posts about it every Tuesday. It's the behavior code. I'm interviewing these top level guys that are really good communicators. And so it's going to be on the code of behavior. That's at 5 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, Enlightened Masculinity has changed from 6 p.m. Pacific to 2 p.m. From 6 p.m. Pacific to 5 p.m. Pacific. So again, that's at 5 p.m. So Tuesday, it's at 5 p.m. Wednesday, it's at 5 p.m. That's Enlightened Masculinity, where I have a co-host, and sometimes we bring on guests, and we talk about those ideas, that enlightenment and masculinity, kind of in the same theme. Then Thursday will remain as it is. Science of Spiritual Growth is at 6 p.m. California time, and this is now 6 p.m. California time. So this is the Silent Flute live lecture. I'm just giving you guys a little sample, and where was it? Okay, so oh yeah, I remember what I was going to do is click record. Let's click record on Zoom. Is it recording? Oh, there it is. Record to cloud. All right, welcome to Silent Flute Lecture, everybody. And on YouTube and on Instagram, you get a little sample of this. Today, I'm going into what's called parampara. Parampara is lineage, and we can tap into the power of our lineage. As you can barely hear me. What is that? I don't know why you barely hear me. Is that better? What do you mean barely? Instagram. Never mind. Sorry. Okay. You can tap into the power of your lineage as you learn about your lineage. This happens with heritage a lot, as you learn like about your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, where they came from, great grandma, great grandpa. As you go backwards, you'll feel a sense of it's beyond belonging. It's like it makes sense. You'll understand more why you are the way you are, why mom and dad were the way they are. Why you took things a certain way, why you believe certain things. It won't unlock everything for you, but you will get more insight into yourself, your persona, when you learn your heritage. And learning your spiritual heritage, which is called parampara in Sanskrit, is very powerful, because in this parampara, and it branches, right? It's kind of like, there are no pure ethnicities anymore. Everybody's like interbreeding, right? So spiritually, it's pretty hard to find a pure lineage too. And myself is no exception. I draw from many. But what introduced me to yoga, the science of the breath, and there are many clues to this thing, and I'm really going to go deep into it in the next hour. It comes from a man named Trimalai Krishnamacharya. Trimalai Krishnamacharya is a man who went beyond Nepal to Tibet. From South India, he walked, and he took maybe some, carriages or whatever along the way, but he got to the foot. Once you get to the mountains at a certain point, you're not going to go on a fucking wheeled wagon anymore. And he went climbing into the mountains, into all the boulders. And on a place called Mount Kailash, which is an actual real place. It's like mystified, this Mount Kailash. Johnny, get on the fucking lecture, dude. What are you doing? You're in the silent flute. Get over here. And so he goes to this Mount Kailash, which is a real mountain. And I mean, after wandering, because nobody really knew where Mount Kailash was, but they fucking found it. It's at the end of this river called the Lake Hagaswar. I think it's that, but I don't know how to pronounce it. It's one of the highest altitude lakes in the world. And so then he climbs up this mountain. Anyway, long story short, he finds this guru. He was already a learned. He had many PhDs. He ended up getting a couple more PhDs after that. And but this is like in the 1900s, early 1900s. And so he grabs these teachings from this guy. He stays with him for 7 years, learns all the dopest shit. He already knew a bunch of dope shit. Now you got the doper shit. And he brings it back because after 7 years, he asks his teacher, what should I do now? That was the tradition they were from, was after you learn from the teacher for that amount of time, then you say, what do I pay you with? You pay them afterwards, is how they did it. And the teacher said, which his name was Rama Mohan Brahmachari. So Rama Mohan Brahmachari, and this is very important because my teacher of pranayama, where I learned the deepest of my pranayama, because again, I draw from different lineages. You didn't get a notification, man? Oh man, Angelica, will you post the link in the chat? You're in the chat, right, Johnny? I need to look into that. With the link, you sure? Check your spam. You should have got it. But Angelica's going to post the link, I think, right? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Affirmative. Okay, so you get the link in a second. Krishnamacharya teaches a guy named BNS Iyengar, who's alive today, and this is the guy I learned from. So it goes BNS Iyengar, Krishnamacharya, Rama Mohan Brahmachari. And I don't know who that guy's teacher was, but that's pretty far back. It's like my great-grand guru or something. And so he grabs these teachings and he asks his teacher, what should I pay you with? And the teacher says, go to the commoners and take a wife, which was uncommon at the time. You didn't do that as a yogi. He's like, take a wife and teach the common people. And he's like, all right, I'll do that. And that's what he did. And, he revolutionized yoga. No, women were not taught yoga before then. Krishnamacharya was the first one. And people criticized him, and because he was such a scholar, he had like 7 PhDs when he's done. It was mostly like religious studies and Sanskrit and things that you might not, I mean, they're just as difficult. They're just like, either like a dead language, and people would be like, why are you studying that? Or one's like a religion, and it's like, you're not going to make any money with that. Those kinds of things, philosophy degree or something. But when people would tell him, all of the Brahmins at the time would say, don't teach women. Why? Because women were more, this is what they say, women are more prone to gossip than spiritual practice. He would quote the text, the ancient Sanskrit texts that he knew, that women were described as devoted to God, or whatever they named it in their way, through chanting and singing, that they would chant and sing. And that it was totally okay, according to the ancients, that women do the practices of yoga. But nobody could argue with him because he knew their texts. And so they would have to admit that they were like, not doing their, anyway, that's the kind of guy, this is the kind of guy, and I resonate. This is a very, he had his drawbacks, and I'll go into those drawbacks too later on in the talk. This is the last thing I'll say. So if you're catching this on YouTube, if you're catching this on Instagram, or you just catch this later, you go to ninthlimb.com, and this is where the silent flute is. We're going to go deep into the parampara and some of the techniques that he passed down. But it was funny because he worked, when he first came back, he was a very poor man, and he worked on a coffee bean farm when he came back from the Himalayas. And I want to make sure I say this story right. And so, hold on, here it is. Let's see, view. Let's change this. Wrapping. Let's wrap it. Good. Okay. So he came back, and actually I might miss some of the details of the story, but he was somehow like a broadcaster, and he would broadcast to like tell people what to do, certain things, like kind of like a local station, local radio kind of station. And but not like how we would think of it. It was a different thing back then. And so the station director, apparently the guy that was his employer, told him don't do it, because he would open his messages and close his messages with a certain chant. He had a different, the way the mythology works over there, you just have the same god, but you have many, many, many different names for the same thing. And then there's another god and many names for him or whatever. So he had a particular name of a particular, and we'll get into why this unlocked his karma. He had a spiritual realization. And this is what I'm going to give you guys, one of the main techniques I'm going to give you in this lecture. So he was told not to say this chant, which was Om Namo Narayana. So he was said, don't open your messages with Om Namo Narayana, and don't close your messages with Om Namo Narayana, or you're going to lose your job. So he gets up and he does his broadcast and he says, the station director has ordered me not to say Om Namo Narayana at the beginning of the program. So I am not starting this program with Om Namo Narayana. And he finishes, and then at the end, he says, the station director has ordered me not to end this program by saying Om Namo Narayana. So I am not ending this program with Om Namo Narayana. And I mean, he ended up losing the job, of course, but he did it anyway. So that was funny. That's part of this parampara, a level of play and independence from those opinions, and a sincere safety in your vindication. But it comes from ordered consciousness up the ladder of cause and effect. You must have foresight on what the consequences of certain actions are. And we're going to get into how to see that. And that's going to have to do with mantra and visualization. And so I'm going to have to cut you all guys off now. You want the rest of this, go to ninthlimb.com plus so much more.